Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daniel. I'm an engineering student from Israel. Last year I took a break from school and I spent the whole year studying Chinese in China. As I came back, I kind of decided that I want to share all this knowledge that I've acquired, so this is why I'm shooting this video. Now this is intended basically for anybody who has some interest in languages in general or in Chinese specifically. Or if you're planning a trip to China and you want to have some fundamental knowledge about this incredible language, or if you were just browsing the web and you came across this video and you can't stop watching, you're also more than welcome to stick around. I will try to keep it as simple as I can, as interesting as I can, and as practical as I can. Now before we start learning Chinese, there are some terms that are worth clarifying. And those are Chinese and Mandarin, traditional and simplified characters, and tonal language. Okay? Let's start with those two. Now, basically today in China, there are about 10 different dialects spoken. You might have heard maybe about Cantonese, or maybe you've heard the word Mandarin. Now, the word Mandarin comes from Portuguese, and it means an official. Now, what happened is that during the Ming Dynasty, which was one before the last dynasty in China, the emperor kind of wanted to have a tight control over his officials. So what he did is that he ordered them to speak one common language, so that he'll be able to communicate with them directly. Okay? So Mandarin is the language of the Mandarins, the language of the officials. So this is the origin of this word. Now, today, when you say Chinese, most likely you mean Mandarin, okay? When people say Chinese, they mean Mandarin. Mandarin is the official language of the People's Republic of China. It is also the language that is spoken in schools and in universities, and is also the language that is used in the media. Okay? Let's move on to the second terms, which are traditional and simplified characters. So, during the second half of the previous century, the Communist Party wanted to make education and knowledge more accessible for the ordinary people. So what they did is that they took the old system of characters and they simplified it. How did they simplify it? For example, they reduced the number of strokes. Or another way was to take two different characters and combine it into one character. Now this obviously made reading and writing easier. Okay. Another thing worth clarifying about characters. There's a misconception that all words in Chinese have a character. This is false. In fact, if you want to read a newspaper today, all you need to know is about 2,500 to 3,000 characters. Now, this is not a very large number. You will be able to read the newspaper out loud, you'll be able to pronounce all the characters, but you won't be able to understand it. Why? Because many words are actually combined out of two characters. So knowing the characters is not enough. You also got to know the different combinations of those characters. Okay, tonal language. Now, Chinese is not the only tonal language. You also have Thai, you have Vietnamese, you have the language of Cambodia, Khmer, and so on. In English, we use our tones to kind of express how we feel. For example, if I say, what? You say, what? Kind of shows whether I'm astonished, I'm surprised, I'm amazed, and so on. In Chinese, they have a completely different function. They actually assign a meaning to a word, to a syllable. That means that if you change a tone or you mispronounce a tone, you will get a whole new word or a whole new meaning. Okay? Now this will be best demonstrated with an example. Have a look at those two characters here. The first one is pronounced when, and it means to ask. The second character is pronounced when, and it means to kiss. Okay? Now don't worry about the pronunciation and what I wrote here. We'll talk about it in the following lesson. So if I come up to somebody on the street and I say, 请问, it means, may I ask you something? Okay, so as in, excuse me sir, may I ask you something? But if I use 亲吻, that means may I kiss you or may I have a kiss. Okay? Now I'm sure you can think of at least one situation in which this kind of mix-up may cause some problems. Okay? So you have been warned. Are tones really that important? Yes, they are. Okay? Tones are a very big part of this language. I've actually known some people that kind of gave up on tones. They said it was too difficult or whatever. Now, you cannot give up on tones. Okay, giving up on tones is like, imagine a Chinese person coming up to you and says, "I want to study English, but I'm gonna give up on the letters A and B." You see my point there, right? So another thing about tones, I had a friend, a Chinese friend, who would always tell me, "I will connect you. I will connect you." So, and I never really realized what he was trying to say until it hit me. He was trying to say, "I will contact you." So I came up to him and I said, "Listen, connect and contact is not the same." He said, "What do you mean? It sounds the same." And this is when I realized that things that sound the same to us sound completely different to others. Okay? So this has been the introduction. Thank you for joining me. Please leave your remarks or your comments on the webpage. And join me for the next lesson when we actually start learning about pronunciations. Thanks.